Hello, Captain Newsom. I'm sorry I have to disagree, especially on one point. So let's set aside the whole story about the Nobel Prize and the whole issue of global warming, and I'll focus on your on the statement I want to contend, and which is I think it's in the end is the central point of your argument, which is I don't care. What you say is basically I don't care because in any case, if either way, for example, if we decrease the emissions of polluting compounds in the environment by 50%, which we would need to do, there would be millions of people dying, so that won't solve the issue. So either way, it's going to be bad and wrong, and so I don't care. I think this is more or less what you implied. I disagree. And I have two counter arguments. The first one is that an observation historical data, which is 40 years ago in Europe as in the US, um, there was demography was high in the rise, so people weren't dying so much. In fact, life expectancy was on the increase. And at the same time, the emissions of polluting compounds in the environment were much less, the emissions were much less intense on average than they are today. And the industries were much less environment friendly, meaning that people could survive very well and being healthy, consuming much less than we consume today. So this is a fact, of course. So then you really have to prove this fact that we cannot live on less than we live today. Now there would be a kind of half counter argument to that, which is, well, the economies change. Economies change, and today's economy in the Western world are driven by the fact that we consume more and more, we produce more and more, we have all the time keep growing. So in any case, we cannot just stop and go back. This would be so damaging to the economies, that to various economies, then this would be a disaster. Okay, in part, what you would be saying in this case, in part, it is true. The point is that we have to make a distinction that often people don't make, which is the distinction between the general meaning of consumption and the meaning of waste. So what drives the economy, more specifically, is not that we need to waste more, but we actually have to consume more. But in the end, what drives the economy that makes this possible, the fact that we can consume more and more, is the fact that we innovate at a much faster rate that we in fact consume, or than in fact we waste. So in the end, it is innovation in technology, it's inventions that drive the economy, and not so much the fact we have to consume more and more, but we can consume more and more and drive the economy because of innovation. We don't drive the economy just by consuming more and wasting more and more, because if we don't have the right resources and we don't innovate, we're just stuck where we are. So this is a common misconception. So by the time you make the distinction between consumption in a general sense and waste in a specific sense, then I don't see in what way waste in itself drives the economy. So just for example, the United States are still the strongest economy around. We can compare it with Europe, and what drives American economy is certainly not the fact, for example, that people use cars that are so much less fuel efficient than the cars that are driven by the European people, by the people in Europe. This is certainly not a driving factor in the American economy, so much so that it's so disturbing and destabilizing that in fact we know the consequence. Well, it's just not because of cars, there are industries there, but we see the geopolitical consequences of this attitude toward waste of oil resources. So this certainly isn't a driving factor in the American economy. Then there are other issues. For example, this is just an everyday example because I know part the American way of life. So the economy is not driven by the fact that, let's say, I live for 1 week in vacation, for a vacation in summer, and I leave the air conditioning turned on in my apartment. Even if I'm going to be away, nobody is going to be there. So by preserving the spider that might be uncomfortable with a hot summer, I'm not certainly driving the economy in any conceivable way. So we have to make a distinction between consumerism, which has become in fact a driving force in the economy, and waste, and still be perfectly aware that it's not that we waste and consume more that drives the economy, but that we are allowed in the end to do that through innovation. So another example is that I have this laptop here, and my next laptop won't be one that when I plug it in sucks up all the energy in the house, that consumes much more the energy than this one. But it will be a laptop that will have smaller chips, a more powerful computer, more memory, which will also be more energy efficient, and so will consume less energy, and the battery will last longer. This will be my next laptop compared to this one that I'm using now. And this is what drives the economy. It is the innovation that allows then, production to keep going and increasing, and it mustn't be stopped. So this is true. But I disagree with your statement about the fact that people would die just by adapting to waste less energy per capita. Now, to what extent we can do that, still by at the same time still preserving the health of the economy, I don't know exactly. I don't know what's the exact percentage. And then, of course, the issue would be if we have to do that, if it is necessary, and if it is useful, and if it is enough. Of course, these are other issues, but those are not issues I wanted to touch upon, but only to counter. I just wanted to counter your, I think it's the central point of your argument that you don't care because people would die either way. And I disagree. Because I don't think I think you're taking a too simplified view of the way of life of people in Western countries.